Welcome to the 5th edition of Details Matter. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, hit the 5-star, make sure you're subscribed. Today, I have a very, 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 very special guest. We go back many years, so I think 7 years now. Mr. Will Schiller, thank you for coming back.
Thank you, man. It's an honor.
I've been on your podcast a few times. Respect you very much. Obviously, we have great conversations in the past, on many different topics, and we've gone through many iterations of ourselves, from being fitness coaches, business coaches, owning businesses, and everything in between. So, Will currently owns a business consulting, so he coaches fitness coaches, very good at it. I've had him in my mentorship, teaching some of my students at one point in time. Obviously offering your perspective and your insight on life and how people can grow better businesses. And I think a big part of your message when it comes to business is just how to become a better person so that it supports your business and so that you can grow in those areas. And I feel the same. It's not always about dollars and money. Obviously, we grow businesses in other ways, and that's just being a better person and changing who you are to be able to facilitate that. So yeah, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, or how we met, how we connected, and
man. I'll go back to how we met. So, what year was your first Mind Builder? 2015?
It would have been 2015 or 16.
2015. Okay. So I graduated University of Waterloo, environmental business degree, and that whole time there, I was wanting to grow an online health and fitness coaching business the whole time. And I was taking like online entrepreneurship courses, 2013, 2014, before it was even a thing, and trying to figure out how I could do this. I was also getting an exercise science degree as well, in addition to everything I was doing. I graduated there and I got a job with Environment Canada, which was like the perfect job for what my degree was. And my whole family and everyone was saying, oh, good job, that's perfect, exactly what you wanted to do. And working in a cubicle, man, I felt like I was like a whale in captivity. Like I just absolutely hated it. And the whole time I was trying to figure out how I could build this online coaching business. And I came across your stuff. And I think it was your YouTube or your Instagram or all the above probably. And you were running the first, I think it was your first ever, right? Mind Builder.
Yeah, that's what I meant,
2015. And this was in March. And I was about to leave my job in that April, so a month before. And I went to a Mind Builder, and dude, I was blown away, because back then there wasn't a lot of people doing that. There wasn't a lot of authority in that space, or guys who were doing it at a high level. You were one of the only guys. There might have been a couple others. So I really looked up to you. I still do look up to you. And it's funny because I recorded on my phone, how you take like notes. I recorded that Mind Builder just for myself, obviously.
I need a copy.
Dude, I'll tell you. I recorded it. And that's half the reason why I had you on my podcast. I knew everything about you because, dude, I would listen to that like on my drives, going to the gym, like first thing in the morning. Like you really talked a lot about good stuff there, and it really, really helped me in my journey. And man, that's like the reason why I'm sitting here today is because of that linchpin moment. And that's a really good word for it, because it showed me what was possible. And especially having someone like in the flesh, like going to an event like you, seeing what you did, seeing what you stood for as a person first and foremost. It just really propelled my own journey, and I'm sure many others as well. So anyway, that's not a direct answer to your question, but that's how I started. That's what kind of turned me on to what this industry was and what it could be. So I quit my job in April, transitioned full-time into it. Schiller Fitness was my coaching company. I grew it for 4 or 5 years, still have it to this day, but
So within a month you quit?
Yeah. Good. Yeah, within a month. Good. Yeah. Well, you know what? To clarify, I was working a contract position, so it was coming up, and I had the option to renew it or not, so I chose not to. I grew Schiller Fitness and hired some more mentors in the space, and really started to grow, and was able to create a full-time income and more, and achieved my goals of living a life of online freedom, but more importantly, helping people all over the world. I mean, the fact that we get to do what we do is an absolute blessing. So that's what I started into. And now I've started to transition a little bit more into business consulting. And I've been doing that for the past 4 or 5 years as well, which I've really enjoyed. That's a little bit about me.
Yeah, you're very good at it, right? And I think that something you touched on, which is like we get the opportunity and the freedom to kind of live the life that we want. And, that's something I tell my employees all the time, is like, sometimes we take for granted how good our life is being able to do this, and also like fulfilling at the same time. Like not everyone has a fulfilling job or feels that fulfillment from their job or that freedom as well, right? Like you can go on a vacation if you want. You know, you don't have to sit in traffic. You don't have to listen to somebody tell you what to do all day. You don't have to ask to go on a lunch break. Like all these little things, and you know, I think that's just a large part of where society's going in general, anyways, right?
Yeah. Freedom is relative too to your own situation, I think, and everyone has a different situation. But one of the biggest things, we were just talking about it out there as well, is it can be a double-edged sword. Once you're able to create that freedom in your life, I would say one of the biggest issues I see with a lot of the coaches that I mentor is they don't know how to structure their days. Because now all of a sudden you're your own boss. You're calling your own shots. You have to be in control of understanding what inputs you need in your business in order to get that output that you want in your business. And it's hard to make that calculation. That's a skill. That
So figuring yourself out.
Exactly.
You got to figure yourself out. Like, what are some things that you do in your routine or on a day-to-day basis that help you to keep yourself structured or grounded? Because I have a few things that I do, and I know how important it is. So I want to know from you.
One of the easiest things, man, is keeping a list every single day. What exactly are the 3 main things I need to get done, and scheduling those things like out in my week. When I first started, like when we were talking about 2015, 2016, dude, I would literally script out my days. Like wake up 4 a.m., do this, 5 a.m., do this, 6 a.m., do this, hour by hour for like all the way to Sunday. For the first couple of years of my business, like I needed that structure in order to stay consistent in what I needed to get done.
Yeah.
So it's a skill.
What do you think about things like you have to wake up early in order to be successful? Or you have to work out in order to be successful? You have to do these things. Do you believe that?
No, absolutely not. It's what works specifically for you. I've worked with a lot of people who sleep in and they work well at night. And that's when they're more creative. That's when their juices flow. I think there's something to be said for having that structure if it sharpens you.
Sure.
But I think everyone's different in that respect.
Yeah, I know for me personally, like depending on what I'm working on, my routine changes. So if I'm working on something more creative, I stay up late.
Yeah.
If I'm working on, if I'm just like in the grit of business and I have to just get things done all the time, like knock off a lot of things in a short period of time, I get up very early and so I don't wake up early year round. I change it, and it could be in like 3-week phases or whatnot, but I change it based on what I'm working on, because as you said, like you might be more creative and that, you know, works better at nighttime for some people. And I find for me, it does. I find that also when I'm trying to get a lot of things done and just knock out things in my day, the best time is like 4 a.m. when I'm not getting text messages, emails, any of those things. So I'm just less distracted. It has nothing to do with waking up early, other than the fact that I think that we have to expose ourselves to some things that we hate doing, like waking up early. I hate it. So I do it because my day's already off to a shit start because I'm up early and I'm tired. So like, how much worse can my day get?
Sure.
It can only go up from here.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Well, let me ask you this. What's the number one resource that you have in your business?
I mean, I think it's my thought process, my energy, you know, all those things that it kind of go hand in hand, like my ability to think. But if I don't have the time to think, then I'm useless in my business.
Correct. Well, that's my point. So optimize for that. Like depending on what your main goal is for your business at certain points in time, because it can change. Optimize for the optimal focus for that thing. That's the way I see it anyway.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, because if I'm not focused on, like, if I don't have the wherewithal to be able to think and to do things, it's like I'm useless. I'm just like going through motions, or I'm just in automation mode, right? So I'm not that useful for what my role and my responsibility is in business, and I think that changes as you progress, right? So you started your fitness coaching. You were coaching specifically people that want to get in shape.
Correct.
In 2015.
Yep.
That's where you started. How long did it take you to, first of all, feel? Because I think people watching, you know, they might want to do it. They feel that they want to start a business, and it doesn't have to be fitness. But like, how long did it take you to get to the point where you had enough success to realize that you can do this thing, or it's going to work out?
About a year.
Took about a year.
Yeah.
So is that financially, or what was it? Like your belief system? What took you so long to get there?
Oh, the belief system, I think, you started to plant the seed in your mind builder, and also before that. This is just kind of an aside as well. I remember in university, this was before like all the YouTube videos and Instagram reels and stuff like that were about how to grow your business online. None of that existed when you were in the game, and when I was first getting into the game. You really needed like search for these things. I remember I would listen to Kobe Bryant motivational YouTube videos, like Will Smith motivational YouTube videos.
Will Smith was big at the time.
Will Smith was huge, and I would listen
Running
to
on a treadmill.
Yes, man. I'd rather die than press that button. Yeah. And I would listen to those things, and I would try to apply some of those mindset components to my business at that point in time. And that was slowly but surely being exposed to those things started to plant the seed in me being able to be successful in my business. But it started with being exposed to those things and applying it to my own life and my own coaching business.
So brainwashing yourself.
Yeah.
You're just like picking what you want to brainwash yourself with.
Sure.
Right. And I think that the only reason I read so much in my life, you know, when I was trying to figure myself out, figure out what I want to do, if I can do it, is because like reading is, when you read, you're pretty much like looking at life through another person's mind. Right. Like I'm able to use your mind now to see life.
Yeah.
So like the more you can do that, the more you can try to figure out what's right, wrong, you know, delineate what's the right way of doing things in life. And I think that the problem now, I find, even myself on social media, there's way too much of it. So, like, I don't know if I love women or hate women. If I'm a young guy, you know, an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old guy that's trying to become a man, it's so confusing. There's so many conflicting messages. Like, do you hate women? Do you love women? Are they called this? Are they called that? Or am I supposed to, like, court them? Am I supposed to not care? Like, there's so much content that it's very confusing for people. And that's true for business. That's true for fitness. That's true for everything, right? And so how did you, I guess at that time it was easier because it's like 5 people online doing it and you kind of just like take their message, trust it, and go with it. But now, like, I'm fighting this message with that message and they're contradicting one another.
Yeah. If you're starting now, it's extremely tough. I think it's way too much information overload in order to understand what would work for you and what wouldn't. The number one skill and value I think you can have in today's landscape is discernment, is understanding what is true for you. And most people don't know that. And even with my coaching, like one of the things I start with a lot of people are, what are your core values? Not just in life, but if we're going to build a business, like what are the core values that we're aligning for this objective?
That you won't bend on.
And most people don't know. So you're going to get sway. You're going to watch the reel. You're going to watch the YouTube video and sway your opinions in all these different ways.
Your messaging will change every other day.
And apply that to your business. And then you're going to be 3 years in building this business that flip-flopped 30 different times. You're going to look back, see what you have. You built something on sand that's about to crumble or has crumbled many times.
No solid foundation.
Exactly.
We have roughly 16 coaches that work for our businesses.
Sure.
And one thing that I always try to hammer home is that, you know, we were speaking before the podcast about, you know, the reels before, the TikTok, where you're pointing and dancing. And I always tell them, like, don't change with the market. That's the worst thing you could do, because those are just trends and you cannot chase trends and you cannot scale a trend. Right? You cannot scale popularity. Right? You're popular today, you're not tomorrow. And I think that what I try to instill in them is like, be a coach. And people forget that, you know, because like now people's marketing will change to, you can do this and eat like this and it's fine and I'll teach you how. They don't really believe that themselves, or that doesn't even work. Like, who's to say that's a coaching strategy that's effective? You know, so first and foremost, be a coach. And I think if you focus on just being a good coach and be the best coach and actually do what a coach is supposed to do, you can bypass a lot of that crap, right? So you have a core message, core values, and you don't bend on those things. Yes. And different trends will change and different social media tactics will work and all that. But like, you have to know, like, what does your business stand for? You know, for us, it's like, we're focusing on excellence. You know, we want excellent results. We want the best results. You know, zero tolerance for a lot of things. And I think that, you know, a lot of other people would never do that or say that. And a lot of people use that against us and say, well, that's wrong what you do because, you know, that's too harsh and people don't need that. You know, whereas like we understand what we do and we're not going to bend on that or, you know, break on that or change just because it's not cool or popular anymore. Because that style of coaching was popular for a period of time. You know, and then after COVID, I think people got a bit softer and their tolerance for things has gone down, right?
Sure, right. Yeah, no, that's an excellent niche you've carved for yourself. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's getting people for like that last 10% is when they come to your business, right? Yeah, I remember you saying that.
In coaching competitors, yes. In coaching even our lifestyle, yes. But we have a lot of people that are not now. So it has changed. You are right. It has changed. It's like people that are at 50% that want to get to 100%. The point is, before it was like people that are at 70 that want to get to 100. Sorry, people that are at 90 that want to get to 100, right? Yeah. Now it's like we still want the people at 100, but we want to take you from 50 to 100. So we broaden that gap of, you know, and fulfilled that gap that we couldn't before, just because we have more coaches that can facilitate that now. So people that understand the market a little bit better when people start at a lower level of tolerance. And it's all about, when I say low level, high level, it's tolerance. So people start at a lower level and we could bring them all the way through now. Whereas before we were waiting for people to come to us when they're at 80 or 90. Now we can get people when they're at like 50% of their best, right? And because now we have coaches with better expertise for that.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, well, to follow on that train of thought, yeah, absolutely. Your marketing and the message and the foundation and everything you stand for in your company should be aligned with that core excellence of what you guys are after, and you shouldn't waver on that. Because people will, I mean, I'm not giving you advice, but I'm just speaking generally. I mean, people will lose trust in brands if you're constantly, look at Bud Light, not trying to be controversial. But if you're always wavering and you're not clear on that ideal type of client, you're going to lose trust in that brand or in that company.
But how do you think they made such a big mess up? Like how did they fuck up that badly?
Bud Light?
Yeah.
They don't understand that, well.
Do you think they really didn't? Like they've been doing it for so many years. Do you think they were testing? They're pushing to see how far they can go?
It could be. I don't have a firm answer on that because I don't know exactly, but yeah, they could be. I mean, in my opinion, I think they missed the mark on who their ideal type of client was, and that's marketing 101. What do you think?
I think they were testing. I think they were, and I think that eventually, or potentially, they're trying to pivot as well. Their marketing.
Yeah.
I think they could be. They couldn't have missed the mark that badly. You know, they have too many experts. They've been doing it too long. They have too much research. They understand their market too well.
Yeah.
I think that there was a reason behind it. I also think that it's, you know, what was the consequence? They lost money in one of their products and then they went to another one of their products.
Yeah.
Like people that stand behind it saying, I don't agree with this, just went and bought another one of their products. So it's like saying, I'm not going to work with Amer. Then you still come into my gym and work with someone else.
Right.
No worries, don't work with them.
Yeah.
You're still buying their product.
Yeah.
You know, so like, did they really lose?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I mean, they have such a loyal customer base already that they've built up for hundreds of years or however long they've been in business. So there's an interesting test, though.
It's a bit of a popularity thing now to say, I don't want their products. Yeah,
Sure.
Those people are probably now slowly going to start buying it again.
Right.
Say, it's whatever. It's forgotten about, right?
Just like we were talking about, people forget very quickly.
Yeah. Kobe Bryant, everyone was crying for a week and then they stopped after a week. You know, and that's true with everything in life.
Yeah.
So it took you about a year to get to that point with your business, to
Correct.
really feel like, okay, I can do this thing.
Yeah.
What were some of the obstacles you had to get through, the hurdles you had to get through within that first year to get to reach that point mentally, psychologically?
First year is the hardest because you're also trying to reach this success point that you have, but also understand how you work, what your core values are, and understanding what exactly that goal is that you have and the action steps to get there and how to execute on those action steps. Because if you haven't been in business before, you don't really have a lot of past experiences to draw off of, maybe sports and other things like that. But business is business, and business is cutthroat. You need to understand how to execute on what you want to achieve. So that first year in business was trial and error, trying different things. We were talking about Bud Light, trying a bunch of different things, understanding what works, what doesn't work. But most importantly, always coming back to what my core values were in coaching. Understanding, okay, I'm me. I'm going to market from who I am as a person first, and then what my principles and what my strategies and tactics are second, and making sure that was always core to my philosophy. But that took a lot of trial and error. That took a lot of trying different things, understanding different things, and also
a lot of trusting yourself.
A lot of trusting in myself, and also, and this was a big thing for me, and something I tell a lot of coaches as well, is you need to, even though you can be a personal brand, you also need to remove yourself from it. Just because you put out a piece of marketing and it didn't work doesn't mean that you didn't work or you're a bad coach. It just means that that piece of marketing that you put out there didn't work. You need to tweak and adjust it. Just because your brakes on your car are broken doesn't mean that you're broken. You go get your brakes fixed and you're all good. It's the same thing in your business. So detaching yourself from it in a certain way to be able to understand what the feedback is that you're getting so that you can tweak and adjust and you're not emotionally attached to it, I think is important, especially in this age of social media that we live in.
Yeah, something I say to people is get over yourself.
Yeah.
Like, trust me, you're not that important in the grand scheme of what you think the problem is.
Yeah.
Like people think like, oh my God, if I fail, people are going to think that. I'm like, get over yourself. Like that's actually, your ego's so big, you think that you're that important to other people in the sense that like they're going to sit and talk about you for a year. Forget about it.
Right.
And once you realize that you're not that important, And I say that in a good way. Like Kobe Bryant was important, but everyone forgot about him after a week after he died. Once you realize that like everything is forgotten about, Bud Light, all this, it's easy to deal with problems. It's easy to deal with failure. It's easy to like just keep going forward and trying new things and testing and reassessing and continuously going through that cycle.
I agree. And especially at the beginning, there usually, if you're scared about something or you're anxious or resistant about something, especially when it comes to marketing or social media, it's usually one or two people that you have in your mind that you're resisting or you're scared to post something. And you're right, getting over yourself.
You're thinking about that one guy.
Correct.
That like said something or might, and now you're basing 5,000 people off of one person.
Correct.
You know,
you could be helping thousands. Oh, me too. I've done that too. I'm guilty of it.
Yeah, but I'm guilty of. I go around saying like, fuck, everyone thinks I'm an asshole. Everyone thinks I'm an asshole. It's like, well, does everyone think I'm an asshole, or did one person tell me I'm an asshole? And now I think so many times that now I just believe that everyone thinks I'm an asshole. You know, and like you adopt that, and typically because there's some emotional pain attached to it, right? Like you're like whatever reason, but I'm guilty of that too. Like I'm thinking, and the flip side of that too is, you know, there's this one guy who's making like posts about me, like shit talking me, right? Like I'll just be candid about it. And you know, he's a buddy of mine, and I told him like before, like we were friends, and I said, man, like I still like you and respect you, okay? But the reason why you keep doing this is because there are a few people that are like clapping for you every time you do it. Now what you're doing is you're basing your whole audience, like I'm not even saying it about me, you're affecting your own market, your own business, your own everything, because you keep talking about me to impress 3 people. And because those 3 people are the ones clapping, you think what you're doing is correct, when like 4,997 actually don't like it. You just don't understand the damage you're doing. You got to be careful when you're doing that. And same thing, like when COVID started, I started making like these stupid videos, you know, like pretending to be Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump and whatever. You probably didn't see it. And it was like funny because like, you know, 20 people thought I was so funny. And I was like, oh, I'm going to keep doing this more and more. And then I realized like, it's 20 people that think I'm so funny, but like 20,000 think I'm a jackass.
Right, sure.
But because you get the reaction, we typically go where the attention is, right? And sometimes, whether good or bad attention, we typically follow that as like our guiding star in life.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught in an echo chamber on social media, big time. And that's why it's important to, like you were saying, read books or even look into like different religions or different podcasts, things like that, just to get different perspectives and see the world through a different lens. Because it's so easy for me to follow a bunch of like masculine people on social media, and then that's my echo chamber, and that's what I'm hearing all day, every day, YouTube, Facebook, and then my worldview is starting to turn into that. But is that me, or is that just my preconceptions of what I'm seeing all day, every day? Yeah. So being able to like remove yourself from that, I think, is important.
That's why I also don't agree with like removing books from libraries. I think we should be allowed to read everything and then form judgment for ourselves. Or like why? Like now, are we controlling how we see the world? You know, are we just saying that you have to see it this way, and that book is bad? Like I actually want to read about the worst people in history. I want to know about it. You know, I want to know about everything there is to know about everything, even if it conflicts with my views. Because like, how am I gonna? You know, when people argue with me about, I have certain obviously, a certain perspective on things in life. I say to people like, educate me. You know, I always say that to people, educate me. If you think I'm wrong, I think this way, you think the opposite, educate me.
Yeah.
Like I need to be educated. How else am I going to learn it?
Right.
Right. So like that's, if you're just following and you know about the algorithm, obviously how it works. And, you know, how you just brainwash yourself down this hole. And I'll tell you, I've started Instagram pages and, you know, pages of things, and I kind of just let them go, and other people, you know, control them. And some of these pages were from, you know, like are about success, and the people writing behind them are not even successstual. They know nothing. They have like 50 grand debt. They've never, you know, they didn't finish high school, all these sorts of things. And and there's thousands of people saying, wow, the stuff you're posting is genius. Yeah. And I think to myself, goes to show me that you know, it's about popularity. Like if people see a lot of people follow something, they're like, this must be true.
That's everywhere. That's everywhere.
But don't you think as you get better at something, like it's actually less and less people follow you, less and less people think you're correct?
I was just going to bring this up. Don't you find that some of the best coaches have the lowest followings or the poorest marketing? Do you find that? One
of the best coaches I know, I always tell about like for bodybuilders. His name is Tim Love, And I always tell people, he's like, you guys want, like, they're like, oh, I want to go to this guy that coaches Jay Cutler, this guy that coaches Chris Bumstead. I say, if you want the best guy, his name is Tim Love. And then they say, like, what? Like, what is this guy talking about? I'm like, just, he doesn't have that level of athlete, but go look at his work and you'll realize, like, wow, like, with where they're at, they're amazing for bodybuilding, that category, right? But no one will ever know about him, or hopefully one day they do, but he doesn't have that popularity like those big name coaches in the States. So it doesn't matter. And I think actually, like, you think Jordan Peterson is the best psychologist in the world?
No.
You know, do you think any of those people are the best? Like even Grant Cardone, you think he's the best sales guy in the world? I've listened to some of his stuff on sales. It's not even comparable to, you know, some of my employees can sell better than him.
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes it's timing. It's you know, it's there's many variables, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean you're the best at what you do, right?
Some of the best marketing that you can do is results and really refining that craft. You only have so much time in the day. If you're spending 70% of your time on marketing, how good of a coach are you?
I always say that.
Right.
When I see people that spend so much time on marketing, I'm like, I know what it takes to be a good coach. I know how much effort, how much attention, how much intent goes into being good at something, okay? And I think, like, how are they doing all that marketing and being good at the thing? I actually was telling somebody the other day that the people that are the best on social media as the expert, I actually think are probably really shitty at it. Like the person that is the expert on like nutritional health on social media is probably not the one getting the best results with clients because they're a marketer more than anything else.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And now that I'm in this space, because before I wouldn't fully understand this and I would take them at their word. But now that I understand how much time, effort, and energy needs to go into these endeavors, you can't really be the top 1% and have this like huge marketing finanza and all these different things going on inside of your business at the exact same time, because you only have so much energy every single day. If you're pouring everything into that, how can you be an excellent practitioner at the exact same time?
So when you were coaching people, like what made you good at coaching people? What, like your results were great, people loved working with you. They still do. Like from even you still have like some like people that want to work with you as a fitness coach, and you're a business coach.
Yeah.
So you have, you know, both audiences. Like what do you believe made you really good at coaching people? Not the marketing, none of that. Like how did you become a very good coach? What did you focus on in order to become a good coach? Not the education, forget that. Like what were your qualities as a person that made you good? Or that you focused on as a coach?
It's an excellent question. The main thing is having your toolbox as a coach. You have certain principles that's going to elicit a transformation or a certain result. And when you get a client, and you know this better than I would, but when you get a client, understanding what tools you can use based off of what that specific person needs, based off their past experiences, based off what their preferences are, based off of where they're currently at and what they truly need. And being able to tweak and adjust these different tools specific to the individual. For example, how many ways are there to create a caloric deficit? Hundreds, if not more. Is there one way that's right for that individual? No, of course not. We're going to find what works best for you. So for me, it's having that skill as number one, but also understanding when it comes to fitness, for example, is what's going on outside of the gym, the other 23 hours in the day. What's going on that way in terms of your psychology, in terms of your behavior, your habits, your environment,
how you
your
view
mindset.
Yourself.
Correct. Your thoughts you're having all day, every day. Now, and I wouldn't claim to be a life coach or psychologist or any of that stuff. That's not my zone of genius, but being able to have open and honest conversations about those things, I think is extremely important, especially when it comes to a fitness journey or a health journey. Because everything, and the more I get into this game, the more I vastly understand how connected everything is. It's so important. So being able to make these connections for your clients and coach them in a specific way for them was one of my key strengths, and being able to understand how to communicate in a way that would land for that person as well. That took me years to understand.
Delivery.
Yes.
Delivery is key. People respond to have different. Everyone's raised in a different home, and if we're gonna sit here and pretend, and a lot of people love to say that that's a wrong way of coaching or this is the right way of coaching. But if we're going to sit here and say like everyone could respond to one way of coaching, then like why can't everyone be a doctor? Why can't everyone be a lawyer? Why can't everyone, like, we all grew up in different homes, different parenting styles, environmentally, like everything is very different, right? Nature versus nurture. We understand all this. So understanding what gets somebody to say, that makes sense to me. Like, I want to change, or that was enough. Like, that motivated me to have that pivotal moment in my life where I'm going to go this way instead of that way, or continue going the direction I was going. And so it's how you deliver the message too, right? And I think that, some people may say or have said, your coaching style was aggressive or is like, you're harsh. And I say, well, why did it work for you? Like, they might say that later down the road. And I say, well, like, that's more of a reflection of you than it is me. The fact that it works for you. Yeah. You have to go and undo and unravel these layers as to why you only respond to that. I would love to sit there and tell you, like, let's follow the diet this week. I really want to see great results from you. You don't think I want to be a happy fucking guy? You don't think I want to be positive and say, great work, buddy. Let's keep this up.
Sure.
But I have to say, like, garbage effort, garbage everything, because that's the only language in which you can receive.
Certain people, yeah, I'd agree with that.
Right? So I'm not saying that's everyone either, but there are certain people that receive the message in a more harsh way, and they need to in order for it to matter to them.
I'd agree.
For whatever reason. Blame your parents.
Yeah, and I learned this from you, man. Because, like I said, there's only a handful of principles that you need to give your client in order to see a transformation. But it's understanding the human behavior, it's understanding the psychology behind it, and it's being able to have the art, because I think this is the art of coaching. There's the science of it, which is what I'm talking about when it comes to the principles. But then there's the art of it, like we're saying, in terms of the delivery of implementing that in their specific lifestyle. So, and that takes time. I would say that was one of my biggest struggles when I first started out. I had a certain box and a certain way of doing things, and I would try to fit my clients in that box in the beginning. And it worked for a lot. Some people it didn't. So being able to still keep my coaching style, because I don't think you need to totally change who you are, but be able to slightly tweak and adapt that in certain ways for different people, I think is a long-term strategy for success.
And I believe that you know this more than anyone, that you don't need to change who you are, because the people that are coming to you for that reason, from a marketing perspective.
Oh, from a marketing perspective, that's the biggest thing. Yeah. And I would actually argue, I say this to a lot of my clients as well, is some of my clients will share a lot of content around just their craft. Your business clients. Yes, sorry. They'll share a lot of content around just their craft, and that's great. But I'll also urge them to say, okay, what are some of the things that also make you you? Because some of your ideal types of clients, they'll see you're a coach, but there's also a million other coaches. What makes you different? For example, you, Amer, I know you're close with and have a really good relationship with your niece, right? I remember seeing some of those posts, and I remember thinking like, oh, that's really cool. Like you seem, from my perspective, you seem like a very caring, connected uncle. And that drew me to you, because I also want that in my life, let alone everything else you were doing. All that stuff was great, but what would really like put me over the fence was that one little thing as well, that human thing, right?
Human element, yeah.
So being able to, I think, weave that into your marketing, again, making sure you keep the main thing. Don't get that twisted, but being able to weave that into your marketing, I think is so important.
And I think that what I call those are like anchors or pillars, right? So like, your audience, if you're coaching the same type of person, okay, same problems in their lives, there's a lot of similarities. There are going to be a lot of common denominators. Like, you probably all like Mercedes. Like, if I look at my audience of guys that I coach, they probably all like similar cars within reason, similar shoes within reason. Like, there's a lot of similarities, right? Like, if I post a picture of like, do you like this car or that car, I get more engagement than I do on anything else, right? Because there are those, like, that's true and that's genuine. And typically guys, the age, let's say 25 to 40, kind of are going through the same type of things. Like, it's a bell curve, It's like there are some outliers on either end, but for the most part, we're all quite similar.
Yeah.
In many ways, right? And if you're the outlier.
Sure, of course. Yeah, that's important too. Is one of the best time investments I ever made in growing my companies was just fundamentally understanding human psychology. and reading books like Robert Greene, The Laws of Human Nature, for example. Not to pitch this book, but there's so many good examples of just human history, how we've acted as humans over hundreds of years. And what you need to understand is even though we live different lifestyles, we're the exact same.
Yeah.
We're the exact same, but it's different circumstances, yes. But the DNA in our brain is the exact same. So understanding that, especially when it comes to your coaching and your marketing, so important.
Every year I read 48 Laws of Power, I read Mastery, I read all those books, and it's just because, as you said, fundamentally they're all truths. You know, like it's like the people manipulate the same way, people seek power the same way, people try to seduce the same way. We're just doing it with cars instead of horses, and we're doing it at the $500 dinner restaurants in New York City instead of at home and whatever. That's the only thing that changed. The setting changes, the movie changes, but the story doesn't.
Correct.
Right, like that core story doesn't change. So humans are humans, and I think that as much as we dress ourselves up, and however you want to dress yourself, no pun intended, right? Like we are the same, at the end of the day, and we could try to move and look different and all that, but we are who we are, and that's about it, right? Like, so I think that when you really understand that, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're like, now it's just, instead of out in the wild, this hierarchy matters in business. We need to have these certain needs met and fulfilled in order for us to thrive in business instead of the wild, instead of, so that's all that's changing, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I learned that from you, man. A lot of those books and understanding these different intricacies when it comes to coaching and human psychology and human behavior. That's the art, like I'm talking about. That's the art of what I think coaching is. It doesn't matter if it's business or it's fitness or whatever, relationships. These core truths, just like our conversation out there, these core truths are kind of the underlying thread that I think connects a lot of the core areas and main areas in life that are important. And being able to fundamentally understand that, I think, is important, instead of just learning the tactics of fitness coaching or the tactics of growing on social media or business or whatever that may be. That foundational knowledge, for example, this conversation we're having, if I just knew the tactics about everything, we wouldn't be able to have this conversation. No. Right? So that's why I think it's so important, especially if you're a young coach listening to this podcast, you want to grow your business. Take the time to invest in these books, invest your time in these things to come up with your own understanding around it and start to formulate your ideas moving forward, because it's that X factor that your business can grow off of. Not a tactic, not a quick system to get X result.
Tricks.
Correct.
People want tricks.
Speaking of tricks, I was in a mastermind a long time ago, and I'll never forget this. They were teaching this system called a tripwire. So like you go through this funnel, and then there's this tripwire that happens, and boom, you're upsold to this or downsold to this. And I remember, speaking of core values, I remember like just hearing that, and I was like, it just didn't sit right with my soul. I was like, I can't believe this is being taught. This is one of my first masterminds ever, and I kept learning these different strategies at the beginning. This was back in 2017 maybe, and I would learn the principles around what they were saying, but I would massively tweak and adjust it according to me and what I wanted.
2 weeks ago I was teaching tripwire strategies. Now I'm a fucking fraud, man. Now my students are gonna be like, this guy's a fucking fraud.
Oh man.
But it wasn't in that context. It was like, you have to get people are running. There's so much content.
Yeah.
People are running. Like they're just scrolling. You have to get them to stop. There has to be something that gets them to stop, right? It's not about upselling, downselling. It's just get people to stop, right? Like you need their attention. So you have to figure out how to like, hey, I'm here. Now you're in. Let's have a conversation and figure it out. But like your core message always has to be true and authentic.
Yeah, I agree.
Fuck, man, you got me.
Man. Speaking of this mastermind, so when I first started my business, I mean, I didn't know anything, and I joined this mastermind, and I felt I was way underqualified in joining it. And it was this big conference here in Toronto, and I'm from a small town, Collingwood, 2 hours north of here. And I remember coming to this mastermind, and I was so nervous. I was like, oh man, like I don't really have things set up like I thought all these other guys did, and they were way bigger than me and were in business way longer than me. And I thought they were doing very, very well. And I get to this mastermind, and we were doing these hot seats. So everybody, it was a span of 2 days, and everybody would get up to the top of the conference, and they would just talk about what's going on, and then everyone would try and fix their problem, kind of like a round table. If there was 30 or 40 people there. And I remember I was the first guy to go on the second day, and I was freaking out. I was with my ex-girlfriend at the time. We were staying in a hotel, and I was like, I barely slept that night. So I was like, fuck, what am I gonna say? They had all these like email sequences and like funnels and stuff like that set up, and I had none of that.
How long were you in business for at this time?
3 years.
Okay.
Three years maybe. And I had none of that stuff set up, and I was like, oh man, literally all I do is market myself on Instagram. That's all I do. This is in 2017 when Instagram marketing was just starting to get big, right? And starting to build. So I get up on the stage and I'm nervous as heck. And literally they say, okay, like, how do you grow your business? What do you do? And I literally told them my strategy, and it was just so simple. I said, okay, like I post content every day around this. I'll go on my Instagram stories and I'll literally talk about A, B, or C topic for a series of 10 stories. And everybody who makes it to like the 9th or the 10th story, I know they're an ideal type of client, and I'll message all those people and I'll create a relationship with them, and we'll go from there. And I'm teaching this at the top of this little podium, and everyone around me, like veterans in business, get out their notepads, start writing notes. I'm like, and I think it's the stupidest thing ever. I'm like, I was so nervous. And then people, they're supposed to give me feedback, but now they're asking me questions like, how are you using Instagram? Like, how exactly do you do this? Do you do that? And that's when I started to understand like, oh, like things start to change really rapidly. And if you don't understand what you need to do at certain times as the industry is changing, you could get left behind very, very fast. So that was my first kind of thrown into the fire moment in business, where I started to develop these different skills that were with the times. And I think that's important too, is understanding when things are changing and being able to adapt accordingly, not tactically, but strategically. You understand where I'm going with that?
Yeah. And I think for me at least, when like I've gone through phases of, it's just like anti-marketing. Like I'm like, I don't believe in marketing. That's my marketing strategy, because I don't believe in it. I don't believe in like trying to be a marketer and doing all those sorts of things.
Right.
And like one time I sign up for like business coaching. Like I go through their sequence, like I'm trying to figure it out, right? Like, okay, they're going to offer me business coaching. They want to coach people that are doing certain businesses, right? Like, so I have a similar story to that. And so I'll take the call with them, and they, a lot of them will say, if you don't take the first call, you're out. So I don't take the first call. I don't answer, right? They follow up with me, so I know it's bullshit.
Of course.
But a lot of times I do these things, and they're like, what kind of sales do you do? And I tell them, and then they're like, okay, so like how much is your ad spend? And I'm like, I did like a sponsored post a couple times. And they're like, you did these kind of sales without an ad spend? And I'm like, yeah, like I know nothing about marketing, to be honest with you. It's just, my marketing is truth. Like I just post truth. And then they're confused, they're very confused. Like, like one guy was like, man, like, people typically spend about like X amount of money per month on ads to get that kind of return. And you've done it with nothing. I'm like, yeah, I actually don't believe in any of that. And so like I realized in those moments, I'm better than I thought I was. Like I actually thought I was a fucking loser.
Right.
And I always think that way. That's what keeps me going. It's part of like what drives me, that energy that keeps me going.
Yeah.
But then when you go through that in life, you start to realize like that's where you form confidence. First of all, you got to keep going. And even if you have a lot of doubt in yourself, you keep going and you keep trying and figuring it out. And then you're going to have those epiphanies where you're like, I'm actually not. Like that moment was probably huge for you because you told it to me. So it must be huge for your character, like for your belief system, Then you're like, you know what? I'm better than I thought I was. Like I'm actually not as shit as I thought I was.
Right. Correct. Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, you start to like move with a different level of swagger. But then to the flip side of that, I think that like our ego's like this, right? So like your ego goes up, and then you can also, we all have a different level in which that ego bursts, right? And I think for some people, I've seen some people, they make $10,000 a month and they become this monster. Some people it's 50, and some people it's 2 million. Like my number, like I don't have that ego in business until maybe I reach, I might have to be a billionaire in order for my ego to reach that level, but I don't think I have to make that much. Even at 100 million, I'd be a dick. But we all have a different level, and that's the thing that stops us too.
Sure.
Because now you think you're better than you are. You start neglecting and abandoning all the things that got you to where you are, You're like, I don't need to take courses. I don't need to listen to people. I don't need to read books. It's all bullshit.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like what level do you think that is for you?
I think it's a roller coaster, man. I'll go through waves of it. Sometimes I think I'll need nothing and I'm fine, and I'm just going to go on my own for the next 10 years. And then I'll be like, okay, I need help in this certain area or that certain area. And it tweaks and adjusts according to the season of business or life. But I don't think I will ever get to a point where I feel like I know everything and I don't need help in certain areas. I do have blind spots. Something just happened the other day where it was my coach, actually. It was my fitness coach. I have a fitness coach too. And this was this morning. And he sent me a Loom video critiquing one of my movements. And he's like, I can tell you breathe like with your traps instead of deep in your belly. And that's something, that was a blind spot for me. That's something I would never know about myself. But he could, because I hired him to help me with certain things. Something else, I think it was about my hamstrings, something about my hamstrings. And I remember thinking in that moment, like, okay, this is why I hire a coach in these certain areas, is to, not to tell me things I already know, but to give me a different perspective or to help me see my own blind spots. Because just like you said, your ego can cloud your judgment in certain important decisions that you're trying to make in your business or in your life in general. So I think creating that counsel, I think that's a good word, instead of coach or mentor, like a counsel in your life that you trust in different areas. Like I have mentors who aren't business mentors or fitness mentors, but are just like a guy in my life who's been in my life forever. And I can talk to him about things. He's just like an average dad. But I trust his character and his feedback so much that I can come to him with things as I'm navigating my own unique journey in life. So understanding these certain things and creating that counsel, I think is very important.
Do you think that's missing in life right now for a lot of people, especially men? Because there's a whole trend on men right now of being like masculine mindset and Andrew Tate and alpha and all this type of stuff. And I think it's good to a degree because it opens up conversation. I don't necessarily agree with everything, right?
Yeah.
But something you said was like, I feel like a lot of men don't want to mentor or coach, right? Like they maybe don't like the stigma associated with that, and we know that because men don't want to talk to somebody like a therapist. But if you look at every hierarchy in all parts of society, whether it's the mob, whether it's a business, whether it's like, it's all predicated on having that person that you trust and you can go to, and like I grew up without a dad. So for me, it's not like it's not like I needed somebody to teach me certain things, but it's like I would have loved to have somebody that I could go to and say like, I have to pay fucking a couple $100,000 in taxes. Fuck. And that they would say, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. You're gonna make more money. Just something as simple as that. Just to have that. It's not about like teaching you how to breathe. It's not about teaching me how to eat. It's not about saying like, okay, you need to optimize this in your business so that you can make more money, and if you'll get more conversions here, and spend more on ads. And like it's not about that. It's just as a person, and especially a man, take that as one step deeper. How important do you think that is? And that could be brotherhood, because like in the mob, it's like they're just different layers. Like everyone, Hell's Angels, you trust the guy above you. You're just a hang around, and now you trust the guy that's actually like a part of it, right? And it's like, why are we naturally like that? And it is natural because it's everywhere. Like I want to hear the guy above me say, yeah, like you're good, or you're wrong, or keep me accountable at the very least.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's one of the most important things you can create. But you before I get into my answer, you have to be very intentional with that. And like you're one of those people for me. Even though we're hit and miss in how much we keep in touch, everything you say I really value. You have a lot of weight to your words, whereas other people I have in my life maybe not so much. But again, coming back to my discernment piece, being able to identify these different people and invite them into your counsel and talk about things really helps you, again, get different perspectives. And like I said about my coach, see different blind spots I think you might have in your life. Part of the reason we're talking about with your video guy, about how I'm also a volunteer firefighter. Half of the reason why I'm not just because I want to give back to my community, and it's another thing to do outside of my craft, but also is because of that brotherhood inside of it, and sisterhood. There's women in it too. But people who aren't just in this bubble of coaching and see these things just real life people who I can talk to, I can have a beer with and just shoot the shit with and talk about being a dad or a husband or whatever it may be and get different perspectives. And there's a few people in that community that I like to have in my counsel, so to speak. And searching for that, especially coming out of the COVID age, searching for that as a man and being open to that as a man is one of the most important things I think you can have in order to learn from other people's mistakes or learn from other people's perspectives, because you only know what you know. You only know based off of your past experiences and what your current mindset is. So being able to be open to other perspectives, I think accelerates your path no matter what you want to achieve. I think it just accelerates your path in whatever direction it is you want to go.
You know how I know there's so much truth to what you just said, because like even here, you know, we take apart machines, like there's 1,000 parts to a machine.
Sure.
None of our coaches get paid to do that.
Sure.
Like they get paid to coach when they have a client, and you know.
Yeah.
But like if I take apart a machine, there's 1,000 parts on the ground, and you have 10 people coming together all trying to put it together. It's natural.
Yeah.
We just want to feel togetherness, belonging, but also that there's some direction, you know, and we're working towards doing something that's productive, and we're contributing in some way, right? And we're doing it together. There's nothing more fulfilling than that, you know. It's
agree.
like the best feeling in the world. So how do you discern with, you know, like who, you know, this is the guy I listen to, this is not the guy I listen to, or, you know, how do you do that? Like, how do you figure out that, like, okay, my words have some truth versus maybe somebody else's doesn't? What is that for you that does it? Is it history? Is it, you know, like, you know, you had to maybe see that, okay, they've said things that are correct more times than not?
Yeah, it's part of that. So it's also results. What have you achieved in your life? Is it something I admire? Is it something I look towards as well? And it's time. Like, it's okay to change your mind on things, and it's okay to have different perspectives, but have you always been solid in who you are, in what your like foundation is as a person first and foremost? And if that hasn't wavered too much, then I see a lot of truth.
Consistency.
Yes, I see a lot of truth in that in people, and that's extremely hard to find. That's why I say when I use the word counsel, and I use that word carefully, those people are very few and far between. So when you do find people where you have a close relationship with that are cut from that cloth, it's important to invite them in and learn as much as you can, and vice versa. It's a two-way relationship, just like you said. Even for you, creating this space, it's so cool that you're able to create this in-person community of these people, and have this, me and you just having this conversation now versus having it on Zoom is so much more impactful than just creating fake stuff online. So I think it's one of the most important things you can consciously create inside of your life and be intentional with.
Yeah, and one thing I want to know from you is, like, you know, because you touched on a few things that I think that comprise being a man, right? And I don't want to make this all about men, because women listen too.
Sure.
But I think women benefit from a man being a better man, and, you know.
Sure.
Like, what makes a man? Because I don't think it's about it. Personally, for me, it's not about money, and it's not about any of those things. But what is it that makes you, you know, it's the consistency of someone. I think that was the biggest thing. So right away I thought, like, okay, well, that's like, I'm gonna gravitate to somebody that I feel is more of a man than not a man. For me, because I'm trying to be a better man.
Right.
So when I know in my experience, like, one person I look to for a lot of these things is a dentist. You know, he's a dental surgeon. And, you know, like, I'm not interested in learning about his business. I'm not interested in learning about, like, there, you know, we have some interest in certain things, but most things, like, it's not, like, I don't care about, like, his, you know, how much money he makes or anything like that. But he's gone through enough things in his life. And he tells me, like, yeah, don't make that mistake. Like, or, you know, sometimes he'll say, like, you know, he said something to me one time. He said, when you go home, just, like, sit in your car if you're pissed off, right? Like, you might, like, every day you do it. You might be pissed, you might be whatever. He's like, and then just go in and just try to be, like, a positive thing in the home. Like, when you come home, just try to be, like, happy, right? Because when you're happy, people look forward to you coming home. He's like, I say this because, like, when my dad would come home when I was young, and he, you know, he's in his 50s, he says, when my dad would come home, it's like everyone would hate him coming home. He was, like, angry, or he'd say things that, like, you know, it's like, and everyone's like, he's home. You know, he said, like, when you come home and, like, people, like, you say, how was your day? How are you? And you're positive, you know, like, or just, you don't even have to do that. Just, hi, everyone. Like, just have a good demeanor. it changes everything. People like you more. People, you know, like you bring positivity to people's day. And he said, and so something like that, like I'm learning these things from him. And I think that's just part of being a man, like learning how to be a man. It's not about money. We're not talking about like, and I hate having those conversations. That's why I wanted you on this podcast. I hate having those fucking conversations with people where, you know, like we go to a dinner and all it is about like, okay, how many clients, how much money, how much this. I'm like, man, like I don't give a fuck, honestly.
Yeah.
That's not all I think about, you know?
Right.
And it's like, that's not what I want to even learn in life, right? That's not what I want to learn from you, to be honest. I don't really want to learn how much money you made last year. Whether you made 1 or 10 or 50 million, I don't care, to be honest with you. No offense. It doesn't matter to me, you know? Because that's not what I value about you as a person. It's not what I value about our conversations, you know?
Of course.
It's about who you are as a person that I value. And chances are, when you value someone because they are a good person and have good qualities, they're going to be successful anyways, right? To some degree.
I agree.
So for you, like, you know, what is it that you think is like these qualities that make a man a man?
I've done a lot of thinking on this, and and I think there's several, but for me, it comes down to one. It's all encompassing, and that word is integrity. Do you have integrity with yourself? And this is, I think it's also, it seems so simple in me just saying it, but I also think it's one of the hardest things you can do, and that's why it's so admirable. Is are you following through with everything you say you're going to do? Are you in integrity with yourself? And are you in integrity with your relationship? Are you in integrity with your health and your wellness? Are you in integrity with your spirituality? Once you start to get this bigger than yourself, it starts to get a little bit messy and hard in order to keep these agreements, let's say, that you make with yourself or with different sectors inside of your life, main core areas in your life. And someone who is true to their word, someone who follows through, they have that micro credibility with themselves. If they say they're going to do something, they're going to do it, and they follow through with it, and they have that integrity. Again, I think that's few and far between in men, especially in this day and age we live in.
Why do you think it's harder now? Any reasons? Are we just distracted? Is it easy? Everything's easily accessible. Is it we can get away with lying more because it's easier now? We pretending to be things we're not. And what is it? Is it just there's no accountability? And that's what I think about brotherhood, going back to that. I think that we seek that because there's accountability there for us.
Yeah.
You know, like you'll get called out very quick.
Right.
And I think that, you know, COVID, I'll quickly say this and then you can answer, like COVID kind of messed this up for a lot of people. Like, you know, you worked in an office, let's say, and you'd say something stupid, you said something stupid right away because, like, you know, you made a comment at a woman and she didn't like it, she'd tell you right. She didn't, even if she didn't tell you, her face would tell you. So you'd have that accountability constantly throughout your day. You know, I'd say something dumb and someone's like, shut up, you know, and you're like, okay, I'm never going to say that again. But because we didn't have that constant exposure for a few years, people sitting at home and not, you know, interacting with other people, I think we lost that, you know. And I noticed when people would come in here, they'd say the stupidest things ever. And I'd be like, man, whoa, buddy. like they lost that accountability, but like, so they weren't being checked, you know. Like, and I think that men check one another, you know, and you realize, like, buddy, hurry the fuck up, you know, like do it quicker. Like, it's just, there's a lot, we seek that accountability, you know, through that counsel. It's kind of a form of accountability for your integrity, for your, you know, for those qualities that we want that. Like, that's what I said. Like, when we take apart a machine and everyone wants to build it, like, we want to. That's natural in us. So I think it's natural that we must want it because we value integrity. We value responsibility. We value people that are, you know, that help one another. So, like, those things are in us. If we value it, it has to be ingrained in us. Right?
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I do think it's ingrained in us. And have you read the book Tribes, Sebastian Junger?
Yeah, I did. Many years ago, yeah.
Fascinating book. And I've been doing, in conjunction to our conversation out there, learning more about religion, also learning more about Aboriginals and the way they would live their lives. And there was, in their cultures and in their tribes, there was so much accountability. You would learn, young men would learn from their fathers. They would learn from their grandfathers and their elders inside of their community. And there was so much accountability. And there was so much to learn from, and you would immediately get feedback in certain areas. Whereas I think there's so much truth there in terms of a manual, let's say, on how to be a human, more importantly, how to be a man. Whereas in today's society, we don't have that. We don't have that accountability. We don't have those types of tight-knit tribes like we used to. And we can say anything we want. We can go on welfare and the government can pay us. There's all these different things that we can slide through life and not have that accountability anymore, which speaks to the bigger issue of integrity. A lot of men don't even know what that means. And I think it's the way society has been designed, even for myself. Me, like I'm talking about creating that counsel in your life, that's been hard for me to do. It wasn't just like a natural thing that was just there for me. I had to be very intentional with it, and especially with me just working online all day, that was a hard thing for me to do over the past 5 years.
Yeah, because you can feel like you're the big boss online and you don't need shit.
Correct.
You know, like I'm good. Like, but I think a big part of it is being fragmented.
Yeah.
You know, that's it. Like, and families are more fragmented. We're more fragmented. You work from
I'd
home. Your
agree.
employee works from home. We all work. So there's none of that constant, as you said, feedback. You know, like the feedback is like being laughed at sometimes. That's not a bad thing.
No.
Right? Because like feedback is our emotions often. Our emotions often, like our perception of things, and then our emotions often cause us to change something about our behavior. So like if you say something dumb, like right away you're like, oh God, shame, guilt, you know, all those
Get
things.
that feedback.
Yes, you got feedback, and it doesn't have to be even words sometimes. Just as I said, the woman might look at you and say, the hell did this guy just, you know, like, and she doesn't even need to say anything, but you got feedback. So we lack feedback now, and as you said, the manual to life, right? It's like now you have a manual. It's just we're avoiding it by not showing up to things that provide us with feedback. That's why people like sports groups and clubs and all these types of things, because I think we do desire it, because we do desire being a better person. We do desire being, you know, having more integrity and just being better overall. And you said you got more into religion. Do you think that's a part of it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, first, like, I'll say this: like, every time we interact, which is once every few years, you know, historically, I think it's not maybe a couple times in some years, but we're very different every time we speak. Like, I don't know how to speak to you, right? Like, so you came today, and I'm thinking, I have the image in my mind of who you are,
Right.
right? I think, okay, I know who he is. Like, that's Will. Like, I'll talk to him about this, and that. But then my first like 20 minutes talking to him, like, I didn't recognize you. And I don't say that in a bad way. That's a very good thing, right? Because that's, you know, every time someone meets you, they should be meeting a different person if you're growing. So, you know, like, I think if we spoke about religion 4 years ago, I would be, even 2 years ago, I would say, fuck off, buddy. Like, I would say, fuck, I don't want to hear this, right? That would be just what I was going through in that point in my life, and how I was thinking about life, and how I was, you know, like, we're just at different points, right? So, like, what do you think 3-4 years ago you would have cared nearly as much about religion as you do today?
No.
What changed for you?
Sir, going back to our point here, in my pursuit of trying to live a life of integrity as a man, a wholeness, I was searching for boundaries to live within and understand, what does it mean to be a good man? What does it mean to be a good husband? What does it mean to be a good father? Which now I am all three. Good man is up for interpretation. But there's no real manual out there except for the Bible or whatever religion that you believe in. And my fiance, she started getting into religion before I did. Her journey started before I did. And it was me starting to get exposed to things through her, where things started to make sense. And I was raised religious, but I lost it for 10 or 15 years when I was growing up. And I used to be very close-minded to it. I used to think about other things, the universe and all these other things. But once I started to be exposed to some of these teachings, it gave me a solid foundation that I think I was searching for and didn't necessarily have at this time. This was a couple years ago. So what that did for me is help me give lines that I could color in, in terms of being a good human. And I don't agree with everything. I agree with some things. I take things that serve me and leave things that don't. But like I said, going back to seeing things through a different lens, and taking different perspectives to form your own worldview, that's just one example of something that I've done to be able to achieve that. And that's kind of been my journey. And to be honest, I'm still very, very early on in that journey, I think, in this new wave that I'm currently going in. And I'd like you to speak on your own experience in that as well, because I'd be interested to hear that.
Yeah, I think that years ago I would have thought otherwise, and something I didn't no one knows. Like I've never posted it or anything like that. As I fasted the whole month for Ramadan.
Right.
And
I asked you if it was a day. You're like, no,
yeah, you're like, nah, I fasted. You're like, oh, it was a day. Like you did intermittent fasting.
I was like a water
kind
fast.
of, man. Yeah, like this where you don't drink. So,
Yeah.
and I didn't even know why I started it. Actually, it was just natural. I just said I'm going to do it, and a few people close to me thought I was joking, maybe, and I don't know why I did it. There's no reason specifically. Like I wasn't intentional about why I did it. I just felt like it was good for me, right? And I realized that it was one of the best things for me. And I didn't tell anybody about it because I didn't want it to be something about marketing. I didn't want to post about it and say, this is what I'm doing. It's just for me, completely for me. People would offer me things. I'm like, yeah, not now. Like, people bring me like iced coffee sometimes. And I would say, oh, not like, I'm okay. Like, I'm just trying to limit my caffeine, like, so I didn't want to tell people what I was doing, and because I wanted to be 100% for me and not for some other, people to be like, oh, wow, you're doing that. So I did it. I would come, I would train in the morning. I would train at, 4:45. By that time, you would have already, your fast, about 5 o'clock, your fast would be starting. So I wouldn't have I'd work out, I wouldn't have any water or food, and I'd wait till, 8 something at night. And that would break my fast, and I realized as I was doing it that like, I'm just getting closer to the truth of what a human should be more than anything. Right. So I realized how much I used to distract myself throughout the day and not really face myself, so whether that was eating, that's like a macro thing, it's like eating is like just like the biggest distraction without even realizing. Drinking, same thing, but like drinking an iced coffee, you don't realize like you're just constantly looking for stimulants in your life. Constant stimulation, even at a low level, like a micro level. You're drinking an iced coffee. That's stimulation. You don't realize it. You're drinking an energy drink. Stimulation. You don't realize it. You're looking at women. That's stimulation. You don't realize it. You're listening to music. It's all these little things, and you need it to keep picking yourself back up. And the question is like, why do you have to keep picking yourself back up? Like, why are you down? What are you trying to avoid confronting? And so it's like, it's constant distraction away from something. And when you really sit with yourself and you're just raw and whole and you have nothing, you realize, whoa, my thoughts are very different. I look at things very different. I'm not even a good person. When you actually start adopting components of religion, you start to realize you are not a good person, because there's nothing keeping you accountable. And something that, I said to my friend, Michael, a few years ago, a very good friend of mine, I said, I don't need religion because I'm a good person. Like I do everything good, and he's like, yeah. He's like, how do you know you're doing everything good? Who's to say you're the judge of that? Who's to say you get to judge that? Like, of course you think you're doing everything good. That's your interpretation. But like, where's the accountability there? Right. I said, well, like I don't steal, I don't lie, I don't this, I don't do any of those things. So I must be a good person.
Right.
And he's like, that's what you believe. Until you follow something outside of yourself that's greater than you don't actually understand whether you're a good person or not. And when you eliminate a lot of the things that you distract yourself with, and you're just left with yourself to really explore that and to think about yourself introspectively like that, you realize that the majority of things that you do, even the things that you think are garbage, the things that like we think about are garbage on a day-to-day basis. And you're like, why do I even exhaust myself with this? Why do I even like bother myself with all this garbage in my day? And it really changed me.
Yeah. So what were some of the insights that you had in that experience?
I waste a lot of time. One thing is I waste a lot more time. I had so much more time in my day, honestly. And that was just because I was a lot of like, you maybe drive to a Starbucks. Yeah. You have conversations you shouldn't. You're engaging in conversations that are meaningless, that you are sinning, right? Like you sin. Conversations like that. All these things in my day, I realized like a lot of the things the excuses I make for myself are not they're it's BS. They're not real. It's like you convince yourself of a story. It's like, I don't have time because I'm so busy. But you're busy with garbage, Right. And you can't actually experience true fulfillment and happiness when you're constantly stimulating yourself, because the stimulation is external. So like internal stimulation and just being content was one of the biggest insights for me. It's just like, I'm fine with nothing. And that is the greatest, like you come into the world with nothing, so like, why are we so absorbed and consumed by everything else around us that's potentially not even good for us. Like mental, all these, and I'd say this, one of the biggest insights for me was realizing that if a lot of people did this, they probably wouldn't have mental health problems. A lot of mental health problems could be cured if people did have something keeping them accountable, like religion.
Yeah, I see your point there. Yeah. How is this, how are you taking some of these learnings that you had in that experience and applying them in your life now, if any?
Accountability is the biggest one.
Yeah.
Constantly keeping myself accountable through framework.
And what's that framework?
Don't do bad things. Like don't engage in things that just because I feel like it.
Yeah.
Stop following my feelings.
Yeah.
The biggest one is stop following my feelings. A lot of things that I
That's
do
a
is
good
just
one.
like constantly, it's because I feel like it eating. I feel like wanting this. I feel like doing it. And I realized that like constantly chasing my feelings was the reason I was never satisfied in life. I was never happy in life because like I was doing things because I felt like it. And I'm not talking about like business and money. I'm just generally speaking, I was constantly trying to chase this thing, or believing that I have this expectation of believing that I'm only going to be happy when I feel good, instead of just realizing that like you don't even have to be happy to be good. Like you could live life and be purposeful and useful and serve other people and like help other people, and you don't need to, and I don't need to be happy, but I can still be content. Right? Like they don't have to go together. Those two things don't have to go together. Like as a man, I don't believe that you need to necessarily be happy. Right? I used to think that like I used to believe, it's hard for me to explain, but I used to believe that I'm unhappy because I'm not happy. Then I realized like I could not be happy.
It's a paradox. Yeah.
Right? And not have to be unhappy.
Sure.
I was only unhappy because I was not happy.
Right.
Right? And instead I'm like, I'm good. Right? The goal now is just to be good, not seek being like happy all the time. And when I realized that, it's like, well, then I stopped pursuing things and engaging in things that were giving me this feeling of what I thought was happiness, even though it was short-lived. Right? Like even just drinking an iced coffee all the time, I was like, yeah, it made me feel good. Like not unknowingly, it made me feel good for 10 minutes. Like, why did I need to keep doing that over and over?
Right. I'd agree with that. I think there's a lot of personal accountability and responsibility in what you just said. But I would also say kind of the flip side of that is our society is so designed for you to follow that path and take that feeling, to have that coffee, to have that drink, to scroll social media, to do whatever it may be. Take that pill, like pharmaceutical companies. Like, oh, you feel this way? Take this pill to fix it. Whereas that feeling is just a normal human feeling. And you should sit with it and learn yourself in that container. But now you're looking for this pill in order to escape that. And we're getting, you talk about this a lot in some of your past work, we're getting further and further away in what it means to be human as we progress in society. And it's interesting. I feel like these conversations that we're having are all is kind of connected in that way.
Well, what makes us human more than anything, in your opinion? You don't have to say what I think is.
Emotions.
Yeah, emotion.
Community, emotions.
Emotion.
Yeah.
Even beyond, animals have community.
Right. Sure.
Right? Do animals have the degree of emotions that we have? They don't.
No.
Right? Some animals do, and obviously we like those animals a little bit more. Like a dog has more than an insect. So we connect with those things more, right? So that's what differentiates a human versus all other species, is the degree of emotions that we have. And I think that we have this miscontact in our brain, of this miscommunication of like, okay, I feel this way, but the problem is we also have interpretation. So we have cognitive function. So we could think. So we're trying to figure out this emotion instead of, as you said, sitting with it. So we're distracting the emotion, right? But we're distracting our brain with satiating that emotion temporarily or masking that emotion temporarily. So we just go through our day constantly doing that, like pulling out the phone, scrolling, doing this, doing that, drinking that, like constantly doing that instead of like feeling it, because that's what makes you a human. Otherwise, that's why we're robots now. Nobody's human anymore. And that's what's happening, is we're diluting the human element because we are trying not to feel, which is the thing that makes you a human in the first place. That's what makes us, that's what the fundamental thing that makes us a human, is that we're avoiding it or running away from it. And I think that, as you say, when you could sit with it and not distract yourself and just feel it and understand it, like you at your rawest, like you can actually become happy. But I don't really believe happy, but you can become content as a result of it. And that's all you need to be.
Yeah, I agree.
As a human. Like if you're seeking constant happiness, that's also being hypocritical, because it's just as important to sadness in being a human being. So it's like saying, like, I only ever want to make money, but I never want to spend a dime. I actually only want to make money, but I never want to work. Okay, well, like, it doesn't really work that way. You can't have one without the other. So as a result of that, now you're trying to cheat the system. And I think that once you come to terms with the fact that these are all fundamental parts of being a human, sadness, happiness, envy, shame, guilt, all these things, and we should feel them just as much as when you feel happy, you want to live that moment forever and experience it and never let go of it. You should also understand that feeling down and feeling, or shame or guilt and all these things are just as normal.
I agree. Happiness is just one emotion.
Yes.
There's a million different emotions.
So that's why we shouldn't expect, and that was for me the expectation of always trying to chase this feeling. Like, just acknowledge it and embrace it as every other feeling that you have in your life. Right? Because that's what they do. Our emotions just guide us and direct us and orient us through life. Right? They're just telling us to do this. Like, you're hungry. Like, you feel hungry, your body will give you all these signals and, connect all your different systems, and then you'll want to eat, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is all part of survival. Like, you have to feel shame or guilt because you have to know when, like, you're doing things wrong. You have to feel the feeling of disgust because, like, if you eat a berry that's bad for you, it can poison you. So, like, you have to spit it out. There has to be some sort of trigger that makes you feel a certain way so that you don't engage in behavior that could be destructive or potentially fatal for you. And also for the primary goal of reproduction, right? Like, I have to feel attracted in order for me to want to pursue sex, in order to want to reproduce and have kids. Otherwise, I wouldn't know to do that. So there has to be some sort of feeling within me in order for me to do that. And obviously, there became a disconnect as time went on, because we got smarter, and as a result of getting smarter, life got easier. But so it's like this is like double-edged sword, catch-22, that we got smarter, so smart to the point that we created so much, but then creating that much made us dumber, and we didn't have to use our brains anymore. Like, now I have Google, I don't need to think, but the person that created Google was the genius.
Right.
But now we don't need to think. So we reach this tipping point where now we're going backwards.
I agree. Yeah, and I think just to piggyback off that, even it's kind of this false sense of feeling that you need to be happy all the time, because again, you can get so caught in this echo chamber, especially on social media, where you're seeing everyone's highlights, you're seeing everyone's wins or their happiest moments, and it's just constant. And you might think, I mean, you and I have sat with this and done a lot of work around this, but I mean, if you're early in this journey and you just think, okay, that should be my life and I'm not there, and there's a delta there, and you're constantly seeing that, well then, if that's your worldview, that you should be that and you're not that, well then, yeah, it's going to cause different emotions and sadness and depression, and you can sit in that
and anger
if you're constantly exposed to that. So going back to your fasting point, I think fasting from food and liquid is just one way of doing it, but what about digital fast, social media fast, these other ways as well? I think it's a tool that we can use in certain areas to achieve certain things, but I think taking scheduled breaks in it is extremely healthy. I think it's unhealthy to constantly be exposed at these different things, these different stimuli inside of your day. That's not human.
Yeah, it's like drinking an energy drink all day, all night, and non-stop until what your heart gives out.
Exactly. You need parasympathetic and sympathetic. Like you can't always be in this mode. So, yeah, just to close the loop on that point, I think that's important as well.
Good. Well, it's always a pleasure having you.
Yeah.
And to bridge off your point about being a good man, I do believe you're a good man.
Thank you, brother.
Very
Appreciate
much believe
that.
That's why I have you here.
Yeah.
You're aside from people that I work with or clients, you're the first person that I had on this, and you were the first person that I'd want on this podcast.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Hey, man, it goes both ways. Like I said, I think your mind builder and just who you are as a person was one of the biggest linchpins in my own journey. And I'm forever grateful and indebted to you for that.
Likewise, I'm grateful for you as well. So make sure you guys follow Will on his social media. You never post, man, on some of your pages. I don't even know which one to follow. You don't post anything. But we will put it in the video. So you guys will see it in the description below. Make sure you guys follow him. We're going to have him on as a guest frequently, so I look forward to having you back, man. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, me too, brother.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Pleasure.